It's looking like a limb torn off, or all together just taken apart, or wheeling through an endless fall. We are the ever-living ghost of what once was, but no one is ever gonna love you more than I do. No one's gonna love you more than I do. And anything to make you smile, it is a better side of you to admire. But this should never take so long, just to be over there, then back to another one. And no one is ever gonna love you more than I do. No one's gonna love you more than I do. But someone, they could have warned you. Things start splitting at the seams, and now the whole thing's tumbling down. Things start splitting at the seams, and now when things start splitting at the seams, and now it's tumbling down. And anything to make you smile, you are the ever-living ghost of what once was. And I never want to hear you say that you'd be better off, or you liked it that way. And no one is ever gonna love you more than I do.
When distance takes us far apart and darkens our today, we have to keep remembering that you're only a thought away. When the world is too confusing and times are hard to hear, we draw your precious meaning, your bright spirit from the air. If we sometimes drift into a lonely state of mind, we can go into our hearts and draw upon the warmth and love that lives when we're apart. And with these fond reflections on times when you were near, we sense a little bit of what it's like to have you here. Those opening words were "You're Only a Thought Away" by Bruce Wilmer. Slavko Petkovski, Steve, the social guru, a man that loved a beer, loved a ciggy, the storyteller extraordinaire. A real character, adventurous, fearless, spontaneous, brave and strong, a risk taker that loved to wing it. A man that thought he was the most handsome guy in the world. A lover of all sports, but of course football, his number one passion. A funny guy with a dry wit, captivating, passionate, fiery, quick-tempered and outgoing. Steve enjoyed all the attention he could get. He loved to speculate and was partial to the odd gamble or two. A gardener, veggies in particular, a man that said, if you can't eat it, it's not a plant. A guy with a sharp mind, meticulous and particular, bordering on OCD, I'm told. That's the engineer in him, of course. However, when all is said and done, a man that loved his children, that loved his grandson, so very proud to be a granddad. This was our Steve. Hello, welcome and good afternoon everyone. My name is Sam Bennett, the celebrant chosen by this family to facilitate the service for Steve here today. On behalf of Nadine, Josh, Mario, Tara, and their families, I thank you all for coming to this peaceful and calm place of life celebration and remembrance, the Taranaki Crematorium Chapel, to be with them on this day. We come together to celebrate and pay tribute to the life of a very special person, Steve. A much-loved dad, a treasured dado, a respected friend and colleague to many others here who know him. We also come to say our goodbyes to Steve and to console one another in our great loss. Steve unexpectedly took leave from this life at his home in New Plymouth on Friday, the 8th of June 2018. He was only 73 years young, and that adds to the great sense of sadness that we all feel on this day. As well as family and friends of Steve, we have friends of family here to express their love and caring. Your presence is so much appreciated by the family today. Thank you for being here. We are a significant gathering, and we represent many more people who knew and valued Steve as a person during his life, and I include family and friends, both the living and the dead. His death also brings to remembrance other loved ones who have passed on before him. May this service acknowledge and recall those special ties which bind us to those that have gone before us. To the immediate family here today, we express our sincere condolences in the loss of one who has been such a loved and cherished part of your lives for such a long time. We know that for you, life is going to seem very strange and different without him, because for you, he's always been there, a bearer of the past and a bearer of your memories. One of the important reasons for having this service is so that we can gather up those memories which Steve leaves with us, those memories which we can take with us into our future as we travel on without his physical presence in our lives. This is a special reading for you, Nadine, Josh, Mario, and Tara, from us, your friends, who gather with you here today. We share with you the agony of your grief. The anguish of our heart finds echoes in your own. We know we cannot enter all that you feel, nor bear for you the burden of your pain. We can but offer what our love does give, the strength of caring, the love of those who seek to understand, the silent, storm-swept barrenness of a great loss. This we do in quiet ways, that on your lonely path, your family may not walk alone. This family thank you all for your support since Steve's untimely death. They know how much you all care. They know too how much they will need everyone's love, support, time, understanding and patience in the difficult and challenging days and months ahead. This celebration of life service is a fitting tribute to him because it is his service in every way, crafted by his family to reflect Steve's own unique characteristics and personal qualities. This service tributes his legacy and is full of memories, acknowledgement and life celebration in the form of distinctive music, the sharing of his life story, numerous tributes and news articles of interest, a pictorial journey and a time for contemplation, reflection and final farewell. All of our lives have been tied together with him and cannot be separated without pain. And as we acknowledge his death and celebrate his life today, do not be afraid to mourn his death. When we suddenly lose someone who's been such a significant person in our lives, we grieve. Grief is our response to that loss. It can feel like being lost in a maze of very conflicting and intense emotions. But just for a moment now, let us think about the link between grief and our love. Grief does not exist except where there has been the privilege and joy of love. Our grief doesn't stand still either. It will ebb and it will flow, allowing all of us to adjust and to integrate that experience into our own lives. And over time, a transforming healing does come. And that healing begins with remembering. So let us do as Steve's family want us to do on this day. Let us remember him well. Let us remember him as a living, vital presence. Let us remember too with love, with smiles, laughter and admiration, the person he was and how he truly made a difference in the lives of those people who knew and loved him. So with those opening words, when I was talking to the family about, shall we have poems and stuff, they go, we don't do poems. I said, that's fine. So today, we're going to do something a little bit different. I've got a couple of articles to read to you today and to share with you, which are quite special. And the first one that I'm going to share with you on this day is an article from the Taranaki Football Association newsletter on Saturday, the 15th of April, but the year was unknown. Steve Petkovski, ex-Iron Man. Taranaki Anniversary Working saw the new Plymouth City Soccer and Sports Club play host to an event of great importance. It was the Taranaki Axemen's Carnival, and it was a day for brute force and unbelievable power, but not just from competitors. While the power-packed sportsmen grunted and groaned as they chopped to pieces half a rainforest, there was a trusty band of club members racing around the competition area, pushing vintage wheelbarrows laden with wood. Although it was indeed a trusty band of helpers, had City's memorable Macedonian done his recruiting properly, there would have been a trusty band gathered instead. You'll need about a crew of 16, said the Axeman. Steve reacted by nominating just 6 hand-picked associates to form the task. And what a crew they were. There was one very junior Yugoslav still enjoying his childhood, a second Yugoslav suffering senility, a Samoan who was enjoying second of his spectacle, one elderly gentleman who seemed to materialise for the event, an Australian, and a middle-aged Millwall supporter who took every opportunity to voice his disapproval of the sport and indeed his presence at the event. "This is bloody boring," he said. He stated at least 12 times during his 48-minute vigil at the helm of his allocated pre-war wheelbarrow. This Londoner, with the same initials as Mickey Mouse, eventually showed that he at least vastly experienced and proved this by demonstrating what he had learned at the numerous construction sites which he had worked, by hastily disappearing at the first sight of a raindrop. Luckily for the integrity of our club, powerhouse Petkovski remained to display all of his leadership skills. When it came to the lifting of the larger chunks of wood, which in reality were akin to a tree trunk, the Selvik superstar was first in the queue. Pushing aside his fellow helpers, Petkovski the Great was adamant. "I take this one," he bellowed with uncharacteristic confidence and immediately grabbed one end of the massive log that had been moved into position by a sprightly pensioner. The remainder of the sequence was an utter farce. The Petkovskis' intentions to raise the log to a sufficient height in order to slide it onto the antiquated single-wheeled appliance. What occurred was slightly different, as Steve soon became the mortal Macedonian. As to his misfortune, instead of the log raising, the sorry Yugoslav buckled. Unfortunately, the resulting undignified scramble did little to bolster the confidence of the Axeman as the bold Petkovski was soon sprawling across the log like some Latin lover from a B-grade movie, with his wooden mate being the sole recipient of his pent-up passion. The Axeman said that he might come back the next year. There ends the article from the Taranaki Football Association's newsletter on Saturday the 15th of April. So with that, I'd now like to invite Nardine, Steve's daughter, to please come forward to share Steve's story with us. So welcome, Nardine.
Hi everyone, I can't look at you, sorry. Dad would be so pleased to see all of you here today to say a final farewell as he takes the next step in a journey that started off with adventure and will no doubt end the same. Dad was born in a small village out of Skopje, Yugoslavia, when, well, that can be debatable. If he was telling this story, it would go something like this. Born in a field on the run from the Nazis, his mother took just a moment to get him born before huddling together his older siblings and getting back on the trail. Her husband, Dad's father, was away fighting in the partisan army and unable to cope and wanting to keep her baby safe. His mother gave her precious bundle to a Bulgarian soldier named Slavko. When the war ended, the family reunited. Unfortunately, the date of his birth was never recorded. The family struggled in poverty, and while doing all they could to provide, they decided that they would alter his age in order to get him to school early, to be provided with at least one filling meal per day. All of this being the reason that the date and even the year of Dad's birth was never confirmed. When any documents required a birth date, Dad would just choose the date that he was filling in that particular document and choose either 1944, 45 or 46 as the year. As you can imagine, it all got rather confusing as the years went on. So at one point, all these possible dates were popped in a hat and we drew out one to settle on. So for all intents and purposes, Dad was born on August 9th, 1944. His family were farmers in a small village called Umandol in Macedonia. Dad had 2 older brothers, 1 older sister and 2 younger sisters who he remained close with all his life despite being oceans away. From what we've been told, he was a cheeky, mischievous and rambunctious kid. He walked 7 kilometres to school every day, rain, shine, hail or snow. He loved soccer from his very early years and was always athletic. He worried his parents sick on one occasion when at 12 years of age, he jumped a train to Bulgaria, only to have to be picked up and taken home by his father with his tail between his legs. At 18 years old, Dad was called up for compulsory military service for 2 years. He trained as first gunner in the Yugoslav army, thus forming habits that stayed with him for the rest of his life, especially around food. As he told it, they were given 1 main meal per day and 5 minutes for which to eat it. If it wasn't finished in that time, it was taken away. So every meal was always a race. Dad and full cheeks, consistent choking were always commonplace in our home growing up. In fact, we could have all been sitting here a lot sooner if my mother Joy hadn't been so skilled in the art of the Heimlich manoeuvre. One time even dislodging the entire end of a French stick that Dad had decided to down in one go. At the end of his military service, the next step he took in his life was the catalyst that would direct the course of his future. Prior to entering the army, Dad had attended industrial school in Skopje, where he trained as an engineer, specialising in X-ray welding, a career that not only took him on adventures all over the world, but also something that he was extremely skilled at and incredibly proud of. It was this training that led him with a group of young men, many of whom he remained friends with all his life, and some of whom are here with us today, on an adventure to the other side of the world. In 1966, he arrived on these fair shores brought here by Fletcher, Downer, Wilkinson and Davies for the Marsden Power Station project. He went on to many jobs around New Zealand and as far abroad as Papua New Guinea. In 1967, he gained permanent residency in New Zealand and eventually was commissioned again by Fletcher's to build the New Plymouth Power Station in 1973. In 1974, his professional firstborn was created along with Jim Hunter and Tom Livingston. They created Manhire Engineering, a company he was fiercely proud of that cemented his reputation as a welder of great repute. In 1988, the decision was made to sell the company to allow other owners, all the owners, at time with their families, but he never forgot the work he did there and what it meant to him. He went on to travel and work for Cunningham Construction as a quality controller till 1995, or at least that's how we put it in his CV. When he decided to change tack completely for the sake of his health. It was in the same year that Dad opened Metropole, cafe, restaurant, bar and grill. And while not skilled in any facet whatsoever of the hospitality industry, he took this task on with vigour, and having his own fully stocked bar to work at proved most suited to his personality. This was another string to his bow, and he made a whole new pool of friends. Due to unfortunate circumstances, Dad went into retirement in 2007, and apart from the occasional venture into food trucks and fairs, always interacting with the public and giving folks a laugh over a very sweaty brow, and despite them likely not understanding a word he was saying. It was in 1973 that Steve met Joy. Joy spotted Steve before he spotted her at a party where he struck her with his foreign appearance. Dressed head to toe in the latest fashion from Europe, a dark blue pinstripe suit, white shirt, 10-centimetre wide red tie, black and red dusted platform shoes detailed with white and red peppermint shoelaces. His jet black hair was long, as was his moustache. She was fascinated. A few weeks later, Joy and her friends and sister were out at the skating rink. Her sister, Christine, had met a gentleman suitor the night before and arranged to have him pick her up from the rink, which he did accompanied by his brother. Christine went out to meet him but returned saying this brother wanted a double date. When Joy refused, as she'd already paid her 25 cents and had her skates on, she wasn't going anywhere. This message was relayed to this brother, who counter-offered to double her money to join them, an offer she couldn't refuse. Suffice to say that when one spoke Italian and the brother spoke something entirely different, Joy cottoned on from this brother's story was dubious at best. But something kept her in it, and it was probably the shoes. 7 years later, in October 1979, they married at the Bali restaurant on Devon Street, and 1 year later they welcomed me. My father was attached to me like glue from the moment I was born. And even though I was not the firstborn son that was desired, my mother always thought that welcoming his first blood in New Zealand was the reason he was so enamoured, and I quickly became Daddy's little girl, following him everywhere and mimicking his every move, performing jokes and other performances at his will. 4 years later, Mario was born, and Dad finally had his son, and our family was complete. Dad was a lifelong football fan and would have been a player too if his body had allowed. It was a huge part of his life, and he played for many clubs, many teams, and coached almost the same. He loved the game and everything about it, and anyone that knew him knew it too. It was how he made many close friends throughout the years, and it always gave him a tremendous amount of happiness. Most of my childhood memories are at a football club, and I know wherever he is now, they better have the premium sports package. He loved all sport, and he played many, including squash, table tennis and golf, and when his hips wanted him to stop, he just kept going. Later in life, he took to gardening with a passion, and this was a huge pleasure for him. But as Sam said, don't expect to find a flower in any of his gardens, because as far as Dad was concerned, if you can't eat it, it's a weed. With the exception of tobacco, which he also tried his hand at growing. Dad was a character with many nicknames, ranging from Daisy, after the rudimentary tattoo of a sunflower he got with a needle and inkwell in the army, to probably the most famous, the son of a bitch. He had as many characteristic sayings, 99% of which I am far too demure to say out loud. He was strong, he was proud, he was the most fearless person I have ever encountered. He never let the truth get in the way of a good story. He was a great friend and a better drinking buddy. He was charismatic and could hold a room and have a crowd in stitches. He had a full life rife with adventure and drama and excitement. He meant many things to many people, and everyone he knew had a unique relationship with him, usually accompanied by at least one special story. He was confident and handsome and never aged a day over 35, according to him. And I'm still not sure how he got younger than me. He was funny, he had a contagious laugh. He knew absolutely everything, and it was the world according to Steve as far as he was concerned. He was a risk taker and a gambler, which went up as often as it went down. He loved his family, and though he struggled with the way that he showed it, we all knew it to be true. He was so overjoyed to become a grandfather, and I will be forever grateful that he got to know my son Fox even though I certainly made him wait long enough to have his second-generation family. He was not perfect and he could be very hard work, but he was my father and I adored him. I was always proud to call him my dad, even though I've cursed it at times, I am him in so many ways, and that makes me proud too. I now know that the man that loved me more than anyone else that ever will is gone. But now I'm a mother myself, I have a new understanding of what it is to love a child, and I get that. A part of my heart will never heal from this loss, but the much larger part is full of love. Love for him, love for my family, and love for this life, none of which I would have without him. So I thank you, Dad, for everything. I hope you travel safe on the next step of this journey, and I hope you're waiting for me when I get there one day too. I will always love you, and I will keep your memory alive for your grandchildren, so they will always know what a wild card their daddo was. Rest in peace, Taylor.
Thank you, Nadine, for sharing those wonderful thoughts with us all. It's now my pleasure to invite Naden Potich to please come forward and share his thoughts and memories about Steve. So welcome.
Yeah, my Naden is Naden Potich, if you who don't know me. Yep. Steve was my best friend. We were at school together in Macedonia, and 52 years ago, we arrived in New Zealand for work. Over the years, he made a life in New Plymouth and lived life to the full. He was a very hard worker, had his fingers in several pies. With lot of hard work, sweat, and tears, he did very well and was very successful. Unfortunately, there was one pie that really burnt him badly. It was very hard for him to recover, but he kept going throughout the help of many friends and that he made over the years, and also his family. The most important thing to him was the family. Nadine and Mario were his pride and joy. He was so very proud of them both, and to have come a grandpa made him deeply proud. He will be missed badly by his family in Macedonia and Germany. Steve was a very social person and enjoyed other people's company, to chat over life experience, and never lost his sense of humor. He was a very loyal person to those who were loyal to him. Steve wasn't perfect, and on occasion we talk about the good old days. He would come out with, "Oh, I've been bad boy." "Oh, I have been naughty boy," he says. I think we can all use our, pardon me, imagination. He was, yes, we all have made mistakes in life, and we might have regret, but once can undo and past, and on look for the future. So farewell, my old friend. It's time to say goodbye, but you will always be remembered. May you rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Naden, for sharing those wonderful thoughts with us all. We now have a tribute from one of Steve's closest party friends, Willem Duschenmeyer. It's now my pleasure to read Willem's tribute to you on his behalf. Where to start? We are all gathered here to mourn the sad loss of our beloved father, proud grandfather and dear friend. But more important, we should also celebrate his life and the many good times we shared with Steve. I am sure that is what he would wish for. Of course, my heartfelt condolences go to Nardine and Mario, Joy, and to all of his loved ones. I remember like the day of yesterday when I met Steve at the Sunday morning kick-around in the off-season of 1982 on the patch of grass in Fitzroy. I remember him as a player with great skills, but by the time I met Steve, he had already lacked a bit of pace. Only later, not much later by the way, I came to realise that losing pace happens to us all. It was Steve who asked me to join Central City Football Club, which had that year been promoted to the Central League. I had no idea that I was to join a club where we were asked to bring money, as well as our football boots, to fly to a game in Gisborne. Lucky for me, I had a little money, so Chris McIntosh could not leave me behind. I can't recall if Steve was part of that entourage, and in particular in that particular time, but in the years to follow, we travelled with the team as players in one shape, form or another, in any role. Roles, sometimes, which were specifically created so we could stay as part of the team. 1983 was the year where Steve and I became close friends. Steve was friends with many off-field, that is. He had good friends in business, good friends in our club, and even though our rivalry with Old Boys was very strong, he had friends there as well. In those years, all we did outside of working hours, maybe even during working hours, was directly related to the football club. One story I'll never forget is a day we had to play Stratford. It was our second youth playing for our second team, playing second-class football in the second division. It was a cold and wet, miserable day. Steve, as always, his hair neatly combed and a little work done to hide the somewhat greying hair. Unfortunately, the weather did not agree with his handiwork in the shower that morning, and on the field, the black streaks even discoloured his football shirt. But we won, and that's what it was all about, and that's what was all that ever counted. As the years went by, we got to the ripe old age where we were allowed to be part of the has-beens, or the never be over 50, some even over 60 football group. Probably the most social bunch of alcoholics I've ever met, and was proud to be part of it. Again, it was more for the love of the sport that got Steve excited. Sunday morning pig on a spit at the club before gathering at the bar with all the players from all of the different clubs, selecting teams during the enjoyment over a cold beer. Our ladies working hard in the kitchen to fill our bellies, cold beer for those that needed an injury attendance during the game, or just to have one while smoking a cigarette while having a rest. All of this would have not been possible without the effort of Steve and Joy. Then, all of a sudden, out of the blue, came the offer for his business, Man-Hire Engineering. He could not refuse. This was his chance to make his dream come true. He was able to open his own restaurant. I still see him the night of his opening, proud as punch, dressed to perfection, standing at the bar watching his guests enjoying drinks and a snack or two. So many guests, they even spilled out onto the car park opposite his place. At first things were booming. I remember the Friday evenings well, as I do the Sunday mornings, which became breakfast, lunch and dinner all in one sitting. Steve as much as a guest as the proprietor. Great times for all. But as with so many businesses in New Plymouth at that time, he fell on hard times. Things could not get much worse in his 10 months R&R with Her Majesty, a period that was a turning point in Steve's life. Even a judgment in his favour, adjudged to have been a gross judicial misconduct, could not make that better. I have not seen Steve these last few years, but understand that the love for his and from his grandson Fox made him a happy man once again. At last he had something to make him proud one more, feeling good about his life again. Steve, my friend, I am sure you will rest in peace, and this evening I will toast to you with a long green and a rum and coke on the life that we shared together as friends. From your friend, Willem. I'd just like to say thank you to the family, to Nathan for sharing their wonderful thoughts about Steve today. I have absolutely no doubt that when you leave here today and head back to the time of fellowship, back to the soccer club, that there'll be much more sharing when you get back there in a very joyful environment. But now that we have talked about Steve today, we've heard a little bit about him, a little bit about his journey here with us on this earth, we're now going to take some time to reflect on life with Steve. You will all remember him in your own way. I'd like you to think of the road that you have walked and travelled together throughout his 73 years. I'd like you to think of the many good experiences that you shared with him. I'd like you to think of your unfinished conversations. What would you say to Steve if you'd had that one more opportunity? But most of all, remember Steve as he was, no more or no less. And as we are reflecting and remembering, we will all enjoy a pictorial journey through Steve's life, and it will be accompanied by a beautiful song, which is a Yugoslav song. Family and friends, many tears are shed because we have loved one who was so special. Now memories must sustain us today and for always. As we remember, we see love's reflection in our tears. Let's now join together and reflect in and on our own thoughts on what Steve meant to each of us, and to recall how he touched your individual lives. So the next few minutes are your time.
Dolazim da se poklonim ispred lica tvog i tvoje kriposti. Vraćam se da te zamolim, da blagosloviš mi pute za kraj. Jer pobjede i porazi bez tebe na isto svode se. A konac ove naše ljubavi prvi sam odmotao ja. I tko sam ja da ti sudim, iz zlatnih snova te budim. Tko sam ja da ti sudim, jer ljubav je moja kamenje, breme i znamenje, koje uvijek si sa mnom dijelila ti, a dobila najmanje. Ljubav je moja kamenje, breme i znamenje, koje uvijek primiš ti, kada napuste me svi, što još jučer su se na me zakleli. Tko sam ja da ti sudim? Iz hladnih snova te budim. Jer pobjede i porazi bez tebe na isto svode se. A konac ove naše ljubavi prvi sam odmotao ja. I tko sam ja da ti sudim? Iz zlatnih snova te budim. Tko sam ja da ti sudim? Jer ljubav je moja kamenje, breme i znamenje, koje uvijek si sa mnom dijelila ti, a dobila najmanje. Ljubav je moja kamenje, breme i znamenje, koje uvijek primiš ti kada napuste me svi, što još jučer su se rame zakleli. Tko sam ja da ti sudim? Iz zlatnih snova te budim. Tko sam ja da ti sudim?
I would just like to congratulate the family and the wonderful people here at Vosper for putting that pictorial together. Friends and family, ladies and gentlemen, there's a very old saying, but a very true saying, that pictures speak 1,000 words. They always have and they always would. And I encourage you all to take lots of photos, because one day those photos will be very important, as they have been on this day for this family. So if you don't like your photo taken, too bad. Tough. Get it taken. Because one day it actually does mean a lot for people. So take lots of photos. Before I share some notices with you and go into our words of farewell, I have another little piece of history to share with you. This one is from the Sunday Express, dated the 5th of June 1988. And it's entitled, "What Leeds and Liverpool Can Do, the Taranaki Oldies Can Always Do Better." And it goes like this. Of course, team management could point to a number of bad luck stories as being the cause of this amazing upheaval of the soccer form book. The non-availability of key players always unbalances the side, and in this respect, the Oldies are no different to the lesser teams. Steve's return to his homeland had a devastating effect on soccer, especially in Yugoslavia itself, where reports are circulating that as a mark of respect to the great game, of all grades of football have been cancelled until Steve is winging his way back to New Zealand. To ensure that his return home is as soon as possible, the Yugoslav government have taken the precaution of banning all the sale of Grecian 2000. So I'll leave that with Steve, I think. So family and friends, just some notices for your attention prior to the words of farewell this afternoon. Just on behalf of the family, they do thank you for your love, your support, your presence and your words of comfort here today. Donations to the St John's Ambulance would be welcomed and very much appreciated, and may be left here at the service in the receptacle in the foyer of the chapel. Following the service here at the crematorium, you are invited to join with the family for refreshments and a time of fellowship and memory sharing back at the New Plymouth Rangers AFC at Maryland's Domain, 259 Mangere Road in New Plymouth. So just to let you know what's going to happen now so we're all comfortable, shortly I'm going to ask the family to come up and join me for the words of farewell. Once those words of farewell have been done, if we can just give the family some time just to say their final farewells to Steve. They're then going to leave the chapel and go to the foyer area, and at that time I'll extend an invitation for you to come up and say your final farewells to Steve. There are some marker pens here. So the family have provided these marker pens. If you would like to make a mark, write your name or leave a message for Steve on his casket, you're more than welcome to do that. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to do our words of farewell. I'd like to invite the family to join me, and could everybody please be upstanding? Thank you. Family and friends, we stand together, united as one, as we prepare to commend Steve's soul to rest and to commit his earthly body to the serene, calm, and painless respite of our natural world. Although we may find sadness in saying this final farewell today, we should also find comfort, richness, and examples in our memories of him, and we will all find support and strength in our combined love for one another. So therefore, we believe that despite our sadness on this day, we shall find peacefulness of our hearts and mind. I'd like to share this reading with you. It's entitled Gone But Not Forgotten. We have etched your memory into our consciousness. We see your face amongst the crowds. We remember your laugh and the twinkle in your eye. We take pleasure in continuing activities that you shared with us. We remember how you loved the simple things. We remember your infinite patience. The smallest things remind us of you. Rest in peace knowing that although you are gone, you will never ever be forgotten. Steve, the path is clear and calm as you make your way from us now. Leave us without effort and without regret. Your battle is over. Follow the call of those who have left before you. We release you with our blessing and our love. Be welcomed with grace to a sanctuary of peace and rest, and know that we are with you. We release you from this earth. Go now to a place of tranquility and rest in peace with our Father in heaven. Rest in contentment in the warm glow of our love. Take only our love on your journey. You may now leave us with our most blessed and treasured memories of you. May you rest in peace. Amen. Slavko Petkovski. Now therefore we commit your body to be cremated. Cleansing flame to cleansing flame, ashes to ashes and dust to dust. Rest and be at peace now at the end of your days. Your work is done. rest in the hearts and the minds of all of the people that you have loved. To you, Steve's family, and to all of you who gather here in his name, go forth with your memories of him into the future. Remain strong and supportive of each other during your time of grief, and hold fast to that which is good. May peace and love be with you all on this day and forevermore.
Whispers, please remember me when I am gone from here. She whispers, please remember me, but not with tears.
Friends, if you'd like to come forward and pay your respects, you're more than welcome to do that now in your own time. Thank you.
Remember that I always try. Remember I loved only you. Remember me and smile. It's better to forget than to remember me and cry. It's better to forget whispers, please remember me when I am gone from here. She whispers, please remember me